Okay, Chair, we're now live on YouTube and you can begin the meeting.
Thank you very much, David. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Growth, Environment and Resources Scrutiny Committee. I'd like to start by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting through the Council's YouTube page. Due to government guidance on social distancing, this meeting is taking place remotely in accordance with the current legislation, which makes provision for remote attendance at and remote access to Council meetings. The meeting is also following Peterborough City Council's virtual meeting protocol. In order for this meeting to run smoothly are several things for members and participants. Firstly, that you keep your video camera switched on with your microphone muted except when I ask you to speak. If you wish to speak, please raise your virtual hand, which is the blue hand and is located at the bottom of the participants section. Some people may now have a newer version of Zoom, in which case the raised hand function has moved from the participants section to the reactions section and is now coloured yellow. Whichever version you are using, please ensure you use your raised hand function to indicate that you wish to speak. I and the Democratic Services team will keep an eye on the participants list to see who wishes to speak. Please be patient if you're not invited to speak as soon as you have raised your hand, as there may be other people wishing to speak before you. The Democratic Services team will be monitoring the participants list to see if anyone has dropped out of the meeting and will contact you to provide assistance to rejoin the meeting if this should happen. As with all new systems, we may run into technical problems, and for this, I ask your patience. Should this occur, an adjournment of the meeting will be declared while the fault is addressed and the public broadcast will be paused. If it is not possible, the meeting will be adjourned until such a time as it can be reconvened. Finally, I will remind members that all virtual meetings are recorded. Before we move to the first item on the agenda, I will begin by taking a roll call of all Scrutiny Committee members to establish your presence. Please, when I call your name, unmute your microphone and confirm that you're in attendance. Thank you. Councillor Aitken.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Brown.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Burbidge.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Casey.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Ellis.
Present.
Councillor Judy Fox.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Howard.
Good evening, Chair. Present.
Councillor Skipstead.
Present.
Councillor Wiggin.
Present.
And Councillor Yazin.
Good evening, all. I hope you're well. Present, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Parish Councillor Leavesley.
Present, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I'm obviously present, and I'm the Chair, Councillor Chris Harper. Also in attendance, we have Steve Cox, the Executive Director, Place and Economy, who will support the committee as lead officer, David Bucham as supporting Democratic Services Officer, and other members of the Democratic Services team who will be supporting the meeting in the background in case of any technical difficulties. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 1, apologies for absence. David.
Thank you, Chair. No apologies this evening.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest and whipping declarations. Do any members of the committee have any declarations of interest or whipping declarations? And I've got Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. I just need to declare that I'm a director of MPS.
Thank you very much. Are there any others? No, no more. Thank you very much. Agenda item 3 then. This is pages 3 to 26 in your packs. Chairman, to say we now move to agenda item 3. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve, and I will take each set of minutes in turn. Minutes of number 1 is the joint scrutiny of the budget meeting held on the 11th of November 2020. We've been asked to approve the minutes as set out in the agenda as a correct record. Can I ask if any member who does not agree that the minutes are a true record of the meeting, click the raised hand function now on your screen. Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Chair. On the first page of the minutes, it says also in attendance, Shaz Nawaz as leader of the Labour Party. I believe that should be leader of the Labour group on the City Council.
Thank you. We can get that altered. Anybody, any problem? Anybody else? Happy with that, David, to alter that?
Thank you. Yes, so with members' approval, the minutes will be approved subject to that amendment.
Yeah, good. So there's nobody else. So I see no other objections. So apart from that change, the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. So we also have been asked to agree the minutes of the Growth, Environment and Resources Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 13th of January, which is, yeah, that's right, pages 21 to 26 of the agenda. Can I ask if any member who does not agree that the minutes are a true record, please raise your hand now. Co-optee Parish Councillor Keith Loisley, please. Parish Councillor Loisley, can you hear me?
I was on mute, sorry, Chair. A minor point in para 31, it refers to cycling facilities in Southeywood. It should have been to Southeywood. It was a discussion about improving access from the Green Wheel to the wood as a sort of hub for rural cycling. So it's just a slight change of context.
Okay. Anybody else? No. Are we all happy then, subject to that change from Parish Councillor Evesley, that they are a true record? I see no other hands, so the minutes are approved, subject to those changes. Agenda item 4, calling of cabinet member or key officer decision. David.
No call-ins this evening, Chair.
Thank you. We will now move then on to item 5, pages 27 to 32 in your report pack. It's the portfolio progress report from the cabinet member for digital services and transformation. I would like to welcome Councillor Farouk, and the following officers are in attendance to assist with the presentation of this report. We have Sam Smith, Assistant Director of IT and Digital Services, Sue Grace, Director of Customer Services and Digital, and Tom Hennessy, Chief Executive, Opportunity Peterborough. Who would like to start introducing the report?
Thank you, Chair. If I say a couple of words and then I'll move it on to the two other officers, okay. Probably Sam or Sue. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. We're today presenting our digital services report, and I would like to start by saying that our digital services has gone through a biggest change for almost a decade. It's a radical change. As you're probably aware, in October we brought in the IT services contract in-house, and not just that we brought it in-house in October, but we merged it with Cambridgeshire as well. And we took the contract in from LGSS. This has served many benefits. First of all, the cost savings on a contract, which we have saved, and then also the synergies we have saved through combining the two together. We've got a new organisation now, which is fit for new normal. We've all seen the effect of the pandemic, which had a lasting effect, and our IT, particularly Microsoft Office 365, has enabled us to work agile more than ever before. And Mr. Chair, it doesn't just stop there. We have new softwares which are working very efficiently. We've got Fix My Street. We are developing shared IT infrastructure. We converge business systems, shared digital approach, shared data to inform decision making. And we've got new organization structure, which is fit for 2020. The 4 key areas we are concentrating on is digital economy, digital skill, digital infrastructure, and digital innovation. And now I'll pass that on for more detail to other officers. Sam, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And that introduction has covered absolutely the key points of the report. Apologies. So last year saw an unprecedented amount of change from a societal point of view, and also the adoption of technologies in order to facilitate the remote working and flexible working of the council officers in order to be able to continue to provide services to our residents. So this update is very much in the context of everything that happened with the pandemic last year, but it also the strategy that was agreed in 2019, it has come through to already serve the councils and its citizens well in that context, and gives us a foundation to build on more fully as we go through. The points that Councillor Farouk has already made around the move to Office 365 is not only enabling the adoption of those flexible working patterns for the council and for members as well, but it is allowing for that collaboration, not just with Cambridgeshire, although I do think that is important, but I would kind of draw members' attention to the facilitation and collaboration it's allowing with other public sector and local government organisations across the piece, be that other districts in the council, but also health organisations, police and fire and other organisations. There's a real coming together and a collaboration that's enabled by that software, and we're really starting to see some of the benefits of that coming through. We have got more adoption to do around that, and the 365 product set is fairly extensive. It changes continually and new things are added all the time. So one of the areas we do need to make sure that we focus on is the continued adoption of that, so that we get the best value from that software for the council and for the residents. And I think that's very important. It's expensive software. IT has a cost. We need to make sure that we get the value from that in terms of the adoption and what we do with it. The shared IT infrastructure is the bits that we are working on behind the scenes to make sure that everything else works, and that they're the bits that we, from a technical perspective, need to make sure works smoothly, so that you don't have to, as people who use and consume the IT and for whom the services are built, don't need to worry about them. And that's an area where we're working on those. And there are lots of bits of work and work streams in progress from that perspective. The converged business systems, where we have already made some significant changes, are around the social care system, so the adults and children's social care. But we're also looking at where we can kind of look at the next steps of opportunities there. And there is more to be done in terms of facilitating those services, the frontline services in use of that software. Councillor Farouk mentioned examples such as Fix My Street, and there's more work happening with that platform as well. So we're continuing to build on it and build more services into it, so that it becomes an end-to-end process for as many things as possible. We've seen some incredible uptake in terms of the use of the council website and the services being provided online. And in terms of the shared data to inform decision making, I've seen some really powerful examples of how the technology that we're implementing here, which is also part of Office 365, called Power BI, and the skills and the technologies behind it, is really starting to drive out powerful dashboards that can be shared across the public sector. To come back to the point around the collaboration being something that's happening more widely, we've got examples where we can share public health dashboards across the districts and with other organisations, including back to our CCG colleagues. And that's really powerful data there about the COVID-19 situation. We're building on that for other services as well. So that particular area is a real crossover. It's an Office 365 tool, but it's being used to inform decision making extensively as well. And with the organisational structure, that's where we get the economies of scale in some areas, so we can make sure that we can afford the skills that we need to drive out some of that functionality, but also make sure that we retain some of the specialist expertise that we need for Peterborough. At that point, I would like to hand over to, unless there are any questions, Chair, I'd hand over to Tom Hennessy to speak to the second part of the reports.
We'll do the questions at the end if that's okay, Sam. That's very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. We're on to Tom.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, Opportunity Peterborough has been tasked with delivering and leading on the development of the digital city strategy. Is recognising that digital technology has become kind of ubiquitous. It reaches into every part of our lives and the economy, and that we need to make sure that solutions are delivered across the city that will support our growth in a sustainable way, and make sure our businesses, communities and residents have access to those technologies and the skills they need in order to utilise them and benefit from them. In many cases, the private sector will provide solutions, but there will inevitably be market failure. And really, that's where this strategy will look to focus its attention. As Councillor Farouk rightly described earlier, there'll be 4 key areas that it will be focusing on. So digital economy, so that's supporting digital businesses, those businesses that really provide digital products and services as their primary business function, but also acknowledging that every business these days pretty much will need to utilize and leverage technology. So it'll be about working with those businesses, particularly small businesses that might not have the expertise in-house or the time and availability to go out and seek the information they need to make sure that they're benefiting from the technologies that are out there and available to them. digital skills, obviously ensuring that our residents have the skills they need to be able to compete within the jobs market, whether they're looking to be coders and programmers, or whether they're going to be working in these businesses that are going to be utilizing digital technologies more and more, but also working with our communities to make sure that residents have the skills they need in order to participate in civic society, in democratic processes, and are able to access those services that they need to, that are increasingly becoming digitized, such as engaging with Department for Work and Pensions or local health and social care providers, and also the council, of course. Digital infrastructure is key here. Obviously, Peterborough City Council was at the forefront of the gigabit revolution, and invested heavily in making sure that City Fibre were able to put their network across the city, not just for the local authorities' benefit, but for businesses and residents as well. And it's about ensuring that we keep up that momentum. There's already work going on to make sure that we've got public access Wi-Fi in the city centre, but then it'll be about looking at how we get 5G accelerated across the city, and again, businesses and communities are able to benefit from that. But also, again, dealing with these issues of access. And I think this last 12 months has really highlighted the digital divide that we have within our communities, not just within this city, but across the country, and about how we address issues of access. And then finally, digital innovation, making sure that we're enabling other businesses to come in, or local businesses to develop new products and services that will be there for the benefit of communities and businesses across the city, ensuring again that we're benefiting from the potential for sustainability improvements, but also just improving the user experience of the city as well. So they're the four key elements of the strategy as we see it. And then also just a little bit we've included there as to some of the initiatives that are already ongoing within the city, and obviously acknowledging the role that libraries will play and other stakeholders in the city in enabling communities and residents in particular to breach that digital divide where that's necessary.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. One last officer. We got one more.
No, I think that's it. Thank you, Councillor Harper. So I think we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much all for your presentations. Questions then, committee? Councillor Casey, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a question about one of the bullet points on page 30, and it talks about an application for funding from the EU. And I'm just wondering whether or not we're still eligible for grants from the EU, and how much weight or how much confidence we have in getting that, in being successful in that application, and how critical it is. If not, have we got a backup plan?
I'd be very happy to answer that question, as that's an application that's been put in by Opportunity Peterborough. Basically, it comes under the European Structural Investment Fund. The UK government has already contributed to that for the 2014-2020 period, but all funding for that programme needs to be spent by 2023. So we have an application in with the managing authority, which for the UK is the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. They are looking to get funding agreements in place by the end of this month. So our application is currently being appraised by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and should we be successful, we'll have 2 years to disperse that funding, spending it on support for businesses and also running a grant funding programme for them.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Fox, Judy Fox.
Thank you, Chair. My question's really regarding the Office 365. Since we went over to that, I don't know whether there's any reason why we're getting a lot of emails coming through that are nothing to do with the council, Peterborough City Council. I get quite a lot every day, and I just wondered if you knew any reason why that's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. We haven't got a specific reason why that would be happening. There are some differences in terms of how the two systems from a technical perspective deal with emails, and there are some opportunities for us to fine tune how the Office 365 deals with that, which we can take away and review, but there's no specific reason. What we have seen is an uptake generally in that kind of email. So I think there's potentially some differences in the technology, but also some uptake in more of that sort of email coming through. But we can take that away and look into it in more detail for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Parish Councillor Keith Leasley, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question for Tom. Tom was talking about rolling out fibre across the city. Some years ago, we worked with GigaClear to get fibre to the house. I just wondered, Tom, if there are any gaps still in coverage of fibre to the house in the city area.
Thank you, Councillor. That's certainly a question that I can go away and look into and provide an answer back to the council. Obviously aware that City Fibre are still rolling out fibre to the premise across the city. So I'm sure there will be areas that are not fully connected as yet. But then also we have our rural areas as well. So we're working closely with Connecting Cambridgeshire with regards to the continued rollout there. As I said, in some instances, the private sector will continue to expand their own networks as they see it's commercially available. In other areas, then it's a case of the public sector stepping in to try and address the market failure issues. But with regards to specific gaps in supply to residential areas in the city, that's something I can get an answer for and report back on.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. So first of all, to Sam, as Councillor Fox has already alluded to, we do get an awful lot of emails that come through, and it takes me so much time to go through those before even getting to the important ones. So again, I just wanted to sort of reiterate that, and anything that you can do to help councillors would be greatly appreciated in that regard. My question would be to Tom. During your introduction, you mentioned about digital and helping residents with regards to going online and those that aren't obviously familiar. I'm just conscious that we've just had the census sent out. I had mine today, and of course people have got to log on and go through all of the relevant questions, and I'm conscious that this is an important document and important information that the government and the City Council need. But I'm also conscious that there might be a lot of people in Peterborough that either can't be bothered to complete it, don't fill it in correctly because they're unsure how to. Is there anything that you're doing specifically with regards to the census? Is that another department? I just wonder what we can do as a council.
That's not something that we're specifically looking to address or support at the moment, and I'm afraid I couldn't tell you whether there are specific teams within the council who are looking to support residents in that. I think I see Pete nodding along there though, so he may be able to provide more information. I think it's important to say that with regards to the development of the strategy, I think one of the words I used is ubiquitous. I mean, the range of areas of life that the digital technology touches on are so broad that actually the solutions and the delivery of any strategy will absolutely have to be a kind of a multi-agency, multi-partner, multi-stakeholder effort, and certainly not all fall within the remit of Opportunity Peterborough. I think we need to keep a very tight focus on economic development, supporting business growth, innovation and skills. But we will be working very closely with the council and other stakeholders to ensure that at least we identify what those potential challenges are and what some of the solutions may be to address those in the future.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Pete, do you want to come in, because you obviously your hand shot up then? So
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Yeah, it's very important that we get as many people as possible to fill in the census forms, because it directly affects funding for the council going forward. Amanda Askin's team is leading on that for both councils, so I'll get into contact with Tom Barden to see what's going on, and we'll get a message back to you all.
Lovely, thank you.
thank you very much. Steve Cox, I've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to come back to the previous question, actually, about the rollout of full fibre across the city. I think members may have seen the announcement today or yesterday that City Fibre are rolling out to the villages of Glinton and starting later this month. So full fibre network, high-speed broadband. So I think we'll come back, as Tom said, with some more details of where the gaps are. But I think it's a signal that the progress is still being made in the rollout across the city area.
Good, thank you. Councillor Zinn.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question on the strategy. How will we identify which residents need our support in enhancing their digital skills?
Thank you, Councillor. It's a very good question, and it will be, it is yet to be answered. Basically, as I say, this will have to be a kind of a multi-agency, multi-stakeholder approach. We'll need to work with community organisations, service providers, local education providers, etc., across the city in order to work out how we best identify where these challenges are. The strategy has not yet started to be brought together. This is the plan, and this really is the first time that we're talking to members in any sense of detail about what the structure of that strategy will look like. But we will be working with agencies and other stakeholders across the city in order to get answers to those questions.
Thank you.
Peter Carpenter, I've got you again.
Thank you. Yeah, just to add to what Tom's saying, I think we found from the revs and benefits and where we're giving out grants from Kpis that those businesses that have become adept on the digital side are the ones that have been more successful, and those that aren't are the ones that have got the more problems at the present time. So there's probably lists there we can look at as well.
Good, thank you very much. Any further questions at all? I've got Parish Councillor Keith Leasley again, please.
Chair, just going back to Kim Aitken's question on the census, there is a locally appointed census officer who's been very active, going around groups, explaining what's going to happen on the 21st of March and explaining the questionnaire, etc. And they've also recruited, as usual, enumerators across the city to do exactly what Kim was saying. So if Kim's not aware of her, I will send Kim the details for the lady in question.
Very useful. Thank you very much for that, Keith. Any further questions at all? Okay, members, we're asked to note the report. Any objections to that? Are you happy with that we note? No hands up. Okay, then we will note report. My thanks to all the officers and Councillor Farouk for coming along and making your presentations. There is no need, obviously, unless you've got anything else in the later part of this meeting for you to hang on any longer. So thank you very much for your time, and good evening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay, we'll move now to agenda item 6. This is the e-scooter review, pages 33 to 36 in your report. I'd like to welcome the following officers to present the report: Lewis Banks, who's the Principal Sustainable Transport Planning Officer, and please forgive me if I get this wrong, because it's Sohail Elias. Did I get that right? Who's the Sustainable Travel Officer. I do apologise, I've not seen that name before tonight, so thank you very much. You'll put me right, I'm sure, when you come on. Okay, who would like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Councillor. It's you got the first name right. It's Elias. So I'll just run through the report for you guys. So just to give you a bit of background, so to support the green restart of local travel and help mitigate reduced public transport capacity, the DfT back in the summer fast-tracked a number of e-scooter trials across the country. I believe it's about 27 e-scooter trials. So we have, so the e-scooters offer a sustainable alternative to traveling on public transport. They also allow for social distancing. The council has the opportunity to participate in the final phase of the trial, which is currently being delivered by the CPCA and is due to conclude in October 2021. So we're asking the committee to discuss and consider the following. The recommending the introduction of an e-scooter trial in Peterborough, or to await the outcome of the trials that are happening nationally before deciding whether e-scooters should be introduced in Peterborough. Now, should a recommendation be made to participate in the trials, it would see the introduction of a small number of e-scooters, which would follow a similar pattern of deployment as the ongoing e-bike trial. So they would be dockless, and they would be they would work by using mandatory parking zones, which would be spread across the city at key destinations. Now, we have done some consultation with various disability groups, the RNIB, Cycle Forum, Chamber of Commerce, and on the back of that, a number of concerns have been raised, which we've tried to address, and which we can discuss and go into more detail this evening. So that's just a overview of the report. I believe now I'm happy to take any questions from councillors.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Councillor John Fox, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'm not against e-scooters, and anything that's green is normally really good. So electricity mobility scooters are good because it gets people out and about. But I have some concerns. There's 15 years of experience at Shop Mobility managing that. Can I just point out there's 11 rules in the Highway Code for mobility scooters, and also there's 10 guidelines what you need when you have one, a class 3, which is the ones that are 4 miles an hour that you can switch up to 8 miles an hour. If you're going through town centres, you're limited to 4 miles an hour. Now, I can tell you the pitfalls, so if you want to talk about them some other time, I'll tell you the pitfalls. But
questions, Councillor Fox.
Sorry?
It is questions, this section. Have you got
questions? Well, the question is going to be simple, really. Is there going to be any rules attached to the use of e-scooters? Who can use them? And even though the government do say with mobility scooters that they don't need insurance, they actually recommend it for obvious reasons. So I just want to be aware and made reassured that there'll be rules attached to this, because I've had some near misses already, and it worries me, and I'm worried for the people who use them.
Thank you, Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fox. Happy to answer that for you. The first thing is you must hold a category Q driving license. So it's similar to if you were to ride a moped or similar, or hold a full UK driver's license. In terms of where they can be used, so they're not to be ridden on the pavement. They're to be used on the road or on cycle paths, obviously excluding motorways. So in terms of, I know you mentioned insurance. It is one of the conditions outlined by the DfT. Insurance must be held. The insurance is provided by the company running the e-scooter trial. So that's Voy Technology in our case, and they do provide liability insurance, which covers injury or damage to third parties.
That's very reassuring. Thank you. I didn't manage to know that, so I googled it, but I didn't find that. But I now know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Councillor Judy Fox.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, have you heard of any accidents that have happened in any of the trial areas who are actually trialling the e-scooters, especially Cambridge? So I'm very, very worried about the miles per hour. 15 miles per hour is quite quite fast to go, and obviously with all the people that could get affected by this. Just really, have you heard of any accidents, please? Thank you.
So I don't have any data on accidents at the moment. I can get that to you from the report which I've seen, the most recent report. There were 3 instances of riding dangerously on the road, but there's no mention of any accidents. So I'm hoping that there hasn't been any, but I can't say that without double checking that for you. I'm happy to get back to you with that data if that's all right.
That would be great. Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Councillor Ellis.
Sorry, in terms of sorry, just another point. In terms of nationally, there's not been much feedback from any of the other trials as of yet. Obviously, when we get to the end of the trials in October, the DFT will, release a report in detail of all of the trials and the outcomes and recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ellis, then, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder, my questions are going to be around part 5 of the report around consultation. First of all, I'd like to, I'm pleased to see this come to the committee. I've been asking for it to be, it was from a motion at council, which Councillor Burbridge put forward. And I'm pleased to see it come in because I was worried it was going to keep going further and further away. First of all, my question is dockless. I presume when you say dockless, you mean the bike is parked up and it's not connected, it's not tied to anything. So I presume that the way that it's there and it's parked up, it can't be just stolen easily. That because of I'm not that familiar on the e-scooters in that sense. So if you can answer that question. Also, in the consultation, you talk about these groups. I'm thinking about the 2 groups which are on the City Council, the cycling and pedestrian working group, which and also the climate change working group, if you could include them on the consultation, because the possible introduction of an e-scooter scheme could enhance the work that these 2 working groups are trying to do to improve the climate and also more walking and cycling, albeit electronic cycling and scootering. On the report itself also asks us to make a decision on whether we support it going forward as a trial for Peterborough or waiting for the national trial, for more national trials. I personally think with some of the things it states in the consultation and the fact that it will be a scheme where there'll be the e-scooters will be easily recognisable, that there'll be some control on how they're used, and there'll be penalties if they are misused. I feel quite, this is better than just saying, yeah, let's let anybody bring an e-scooter, use it how they want. I'm quite pleased with all the information on this report. So I'll flag up now that I would be supportive of Peterborough, doing its own trial for this.
Just so everybody knows.
Yeah, so if you can answer those two questions about the groups on consultation and also the dockless.
Yeah, okay, I'll let the question be answered first.
So, thank you, councillors. As I mentioned, they're dockless, so there's no physical infrastructure involved in parking one up. However, they are limited as to where they can be parked up. So we have designated parking zones which use geofencing to park up the scooters. So that's to ensure that they're not just left in the middle of the road or left in a manner which is going to be called an issue to accessibility. So I think sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Geofencing, can you just explain what you mean?
Geofencing, yeah, that's correct, yeah.
What do you mean by geofencing?
So it basically uses GPS location to sort of ensure that you can't park outside a designated space. So, for example, we could have a parking zone outside San Martin House. It might be within a sort of radius of about 3 meters, for example, and you can only park the scooters within there. You wouldn't be able to park them on the other side of the building, for example.
Okay.
I probably haven't explained that very well. I'm not from a sort of technical background, but hopefully that gives a bit of a.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And just the second question was around including the climate change working group and the walking and cycling working groups within the consultation. Yeah, more than happy to do that, and I'll be happy to join the next walking and cycling working group, which is due to take place in the next couple of weeks to discuss this.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will, just for everybody's benefit, because we're going to get to effective or being asked to make a decision, as Councillor Ellis has alluded to, I will just, if necessary, at the end, just allow you to have a sort of a statement, if you want to, each person, if you feel you want to, just before we go to any sort of vote, unless we're all agreed, of course. Councillor Burbidge.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. When I brought this motion forward to council, I did state quite vehemently that it wasn't a motion against the use of e-scooters, but more designed towards the responsible use of e-scooters. So on that point, I'd just like to ask a little bit more about the ambassadors that the report mentions. How many ambassadors will there be? What powers will they have to enforce non-pavement riding? I note that there's a three strikes and you're off system in enforcement there. So how will they enforce that? And also, how do you expect an ambassador to chase after somebody doing 15 miles an hour as they go flying past them on an e-scooter on the path?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the last question. Was that in relation to a driver going past?
Yeah, if you're a if you're an ambassador,
yeah,
assuming that they're going to be walking around like an enforcement officer, how do you expect them to chase after somebody riding on the footpath at 15 miles an hour when they go whizzing past them from behind? Obviously, they've got to have some method of catching up with them to enforce the rules.
Yeah. So in terms of the powers that they have, so obviously when you register to use the e-scooter, you register via the VOI app. It'll ask you to take a picture of your driver's license as well as a picture of your face to confirm your identity. So obviously the company who will run the trials, VOI, hold all of the positioning all the data around where the scooters are being used. So it should be fairly easy to locate which user is using a scooter at a particular location at a particular time. So although they may not necessarily be able to catch up with them and to stop them from riding on a path and and issue some sort of warning, a warning can be sent through via the app. And as you mentioned, there's a 3-strike policy which operates, and after which the user is no longer able to make use of the scooters. Just going on to your first question about how many ambassadors there'll be. Again, this is something which, because we're not currently participating in the trials, it would be difficult to get a number. But I can ask VOI how many they'll be looking to introduce and what sort of hours they'll be working. If you're okay with that, I can get back to you with that information.
Okay.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Chair. Further question on enforcement, please. The report states that the scooters will be clearly branded and therefore it is possible for enforcement officers and the police to clearly recognise permitted versus illegal use of privately owned scooters. However, at the moment, there is no enforcement that I can see of illegal privately owned scooters, both in my community and in the city centre that I see while I'm there for work. There are e-scooters used on paths all over the place and nothing seems to be done. Councillor Burbidge has mentioned how people are going to chase them down. We've seen the same issue with the cycle ban on Bridge Street, where the enforcement officers would need to catch the person on a bike when they're on foot to be able to find them. Can you provide some more information about how this is actually going to be enforced and what conversations have taken place with both council enforcement officers and the police about this?
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking about illegal use. We're talking about any scooter which is being ridden or used outside of the trial, outside of one of the 27 trials which are being operated nationally. That's something for the police to sort of enforce. And as you mentioned, currently they're not actively enforcing, use or illegal use of scooters. But one of the we will be in consultation with the police and the road safety team at Peterborough City Council should we proceed. So yeah, I don't know if Lewis had anything to add to that.
No, nothing to add, but like you say, Sahel, during the next stages, then we would, if the trial was to go ahead, we would look to see, what enforcement powers the council and the police could bring to the trial to make sure that it's successful and as safe as possible.
Okay,
thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Howard.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think Councillor Fox has probably alluded to this question already, but I just wanted to know if there was a record of how many antisocial complaints there's been, or general complaints about the use of the bikes in Cambridge so far. It would just be interesting to know if there's been many complaints or whether it's been sort of positively received. Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, I can't necessarily make comment in terms of the complaints. However, based on the usage figures, it seems that it has been received very positively. So in March, there were about 3,639 rides with a distance of about 9,000 kilometers on the e-scooters. So it seems that there has been, there are positives there. In terms of the complaints, I'm sure there has been some, but again, without speaking to our colleagues at the CPCA, I wouldn't be able to accurately answer that.
Okay, Councillor Hussain, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, has any thought been given to our vulnerable residents? So how would the trial and this scheme impact the space that they have available? Because of course, some may be dependent on mobility aids to get around and to participate in their day-to-day activities. So how would this scheme impact them and the space that they have available to them? And I had another question on insurance. So what was the maximum insurance that is available for riders in the event of any accidents?
Good question.
That is a question in terms of the insurance. So what is on the app? It just says that there's liability insurance in place. In terms of how much that is, again, I'd have to check that for you if that's all right. And going back to your question on vulnerable road users, particularly the elderly, obviously, pavement use of the scooters is prohibited and illegal, and would try to, combat that through some sort of enforcement. Obviously, it comes down to rider education a lot of the time as well. So it's really down to the individuals to ensure that they're being considerate. But yeah, it's a fair comment, but it comes down to enforcement, really. We just need to ensure that it's enforced properly and that that it's kept to a minimum.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Casey.
Thank you very much, Chair. Actually, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because seeing initiatives like this, it sort of makes you think of what's it going to be like in the future. So if you've got a bus of 50 people and we're trying to make them all go onto e-scooters, how many e-scooters are we going to have on the roads in 10, 15 years' time? Could be hundreds. But one of the questions I've got is, do we have any data on the demographic of those who are actually using it in the tests at the moment? and who are our target audience for these? Are they commuters? Are they shoppers? And what sort of information are we having on that? If we're having 27 in the city, who's going to be using them and where are they going to be used?
Yeah, so again, it is probably something which the national report, when it comes out, will go into more detail in terms of the demographics, in terms of who's using them and for what sort of journeys. I would think it's a lot of it would be commuters, people commuting to work, people on multimodal journeys, so people coming in on the train then might decide to jump on an e-scooter to complete the last leg of their journey. So it's really about those short to medium journeys, but yeah, so most likely you're looking at your commuter market, and with a bit of leisure as well. I've used one in Barcelona and they are quite fun. So sorry, Councillor, what was your last question? One was about the demographics, and was it around numbers?
It was, yes. What's the profile of those, sort of age group, and I suppose we've already spoken about what they'd be using it for, whether or not it'd be commuting, or perhaps I know I've seen them in Barcelona too, but in Peterborough as such, could we imagine groups of tourists going around on e-scooters, or there's those ones, aren't there, where you lean forward where you see the tours going? Here am I.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't have any data around the demographics of the users. I can try and find some for you if that's okay. But yeah, I suppose this is another thing which would have to wait until the sort of national data is released. But I'm sure I can get some data with regards to Cambridge.
Okay, we'll move on, and if you've got something, you can come back with that later if you don't mind. Yeah. Councillor Aitken, then.
Thank you, Chair. So just to put you in the picture, I know around Peterborough we have certain people that like to ride about on scooters at the moment, on green fields and such like. My fear is that they will use the e-scooters to do that on top of what they're already doing. Can you confirm whether these e-scooters can actually be stolen at all? I know you said so. Is there any security around making sure that they stay where they are?
Yeah, so I mean they can be stolen, but they can't be used. They won't be able to. You won't be able to unlock them and use them. So it'd be useless effectively. And they also have within them sort of GPS tracking systems. So the guys who own them will know where they are.
Okay, so you are confident they can't be stolen and started up like a car, for an example?
Again, I shouldn't think not, but they say you can never say never. I'm sure there's somebody out there who can. Who will be able to, but it's probably highly unlikely given the technology, and and even if they're not stolen, they'll be able to sort of track them down.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from is I am a little concerned that you don't have. I mean, I know it's a trial, but there are a number of elements to what you've said tonight. Don't convince me that we've got everything in place that we need with regards to a trial in Peterborough, but. We'll see how things pan out at the end of the evening. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Just a quick question which I just thought of. This is around safety of users, the users of the e-scooters, and around will there be any guidance about what routes they should or shouldn't use, i.e. on the roads, and guidance to other road users as well? That's as well as perhaps if you're on a road with a cycle lane, there'll be cycles there, but guidance to other road users that there could be e-scooters there as well, and potentially going slower. So just if you've got any guidance on safe use of them for both the users and also for other users to be aware of them.
Yeah, so similar to the bikes, when you log onto the app, it does give you, recommended guidance. So, and it will tell you where you can and cannot ride. It'll also recommend that you wear a helmet, you consider it, you abide by the rules of the road and abide all traffic regulations as well, so traffic lights, etc. So all of the rules which apply to cyclists also apply to e-scooters. In terms of other road users, I don't think, as it's just a trial, I don't think there would be any sort of signage or anything like that warning other road users to the presence of e-scooters. As it's just a trial, maybe later on in the future, this may not be the case, and we may see, signs similar to the signs for cyclists for e-scooters. But yeah, so. Does that answer your question, Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, I think so. So just to add to that, I think if the trial was to go ahead, we could obviously put out some comms in the local media channels to obviously make drivers, pedestrians, and the general public aware that an e-scooter trial is happening in Peterborough and some of the rules and regulations around it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Skipstead.
Yeah, I've just had a quick question. I've noticed these scooters around, and quite often you don't see them. What will be the rules around lighting? Will it be the same as for cyclists? Because a lot of them cycle and they're very dark. I don't notice them.
Yeah, so they will have lights front and back, similar to bikes. Yeah, I agree. Currently, I've seen them around as well without lights, but within the trial they will have lights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wiggin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is about the how they're going to be powered in terms of, obviously they're battery powered. Where's the electricity coming from for the to charge the batteries? Because any green initiative involving things that are battery powered is only as green as the electricity produced to make it. So who is powering that, and what's their electricity mix?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the batteries are changed by FOI, so they'll go around and change the batteries each evening, which is how they've been doing for the e-bikes. In terms of what their electricity, where their electricity is coming from, again, I'd have to check that. But yeah, it's a valid point, and if they can, or if they are using green renewable energy, then fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Casey, is it a quick one?
Yes, Chair. Yes, it is a quick one. I'm just thinking, so if the trial involves 27 e-scooters, you've just moved on my screen, 27 e-scooters, we'll have an idea of where the actual geo-locking points are. We'll have control over where the routes are. Have we got any idea where we're going to put them? And so therefore, I suppose then it's easier to monitor. Do we have any plans for it?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So just, sorry, Councillor Casey, just in terms of the number 27, that was referring to the number of national trials which are taking place, not necessarily the number of scooters which are going to be deployed in Peterborough. We may start with a smaller number, maybe about 20 to 25, and then dependent on growth, expand thereafter. In terms of the parking locations, so for example, with the e-bikes, they're at key destinations, so they're close to shopping centres, they're close to the train station, close to the bus station, close to business parks, and as well as leisure destinations as well. So I imagine we'd go down a similar route. Nothing's been set in stone as of yet, but we have control over where they can be parked. And again, we're happy to consult with the various groups before going live with any parking locations.
Okay, thank you very much. Just one last question, if I may, Sal. It's to do with, you said to be used on roads or cycle lanes. And around Peterborough, particularly the Green Wheel, we have shared footpath cycle lane where there's no marked route. Basically, it's just one path. Would we be assuming, or would I be right in assuming that they wouldn't be allowed to use them, because that's going to be a very grey area for e-scooters and e-cycles, because e-cycles can use them, so why can't scooters? So I think the question I'm asking is has that been looked at, that it's not just simple to just say cycleways, because there are shared footpath cycleways that have no marks on them at all.
Yeah, I suppose technically speaking, they would be it would be legal to use within those cycleways. So I don't know if Lewis had any thoughts on this, or anything to add, Lewis.
Yes, they can be used, can't they, Hale, on any either segregated cycleway where there's a separate lane, if you like, for cycles and a separate section for pedestrians, but on shared use, such as a lot of the Green Wheel, where cyclists and pedestrians mix, potentially they would be mixing with e-scooters as well, wouldn't they? Because e-scooters would be able to be ridden on all of our shared use paths as well in Peterborough.
So they can. Okay, fair enough. And just to clarify one other thing, if I might, you said about the PPE that is it's purely advisory for helmets, so there's not like a motorbike any compulsory necessity to wear PPE. It's basically if you want to.
Yeah, so it's similar to bikes, where it's recommended that you wear a helmet or other protective equipment. Again, this may be a recommendation as a result of the national trial, that it's rather than a recommendation, it's a condition. So I suppose we'll wait and see. But at the moment, it's just a recommendation.
Okay, fine. And my last one, sorry, no more after this. Talking about the fact they can use roads, and in some cases, some of the cycleways, they are traffic controlled, with signals, zebra crossings. Will they be expected to follow those rules like a cyclist exactly? So if there's a red light to stop?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
thank you very much. Thanks for clearing that up. Okay, well, there's no more questions come up on and no hands up. So thank you very much for all the questions. We've now got effectively a decision to make, and I'm looking for a recommendation from somebody, please, to either we recommend that Cabinet introduces an e-scooter trial in Peterborough, or we recommend that Cabinet awaits the outcome of the trials that are happening nationally before deciding whether e-scooters should be introduced in Peterborough. So could I have a proposal from somebody? I could do one myself, but I'm happy to take one from the committee. Councillor Burbidge.
Yeah. I've put the motion forward at the start, and I have the concerns. I still have some great concerns regarding the safety of the scooters and the enforcement around the use of the scooters. With that in mind, I would dearly love to see them in use in Peterborough, but I think at the moment I'd be more inclined to wait for the outcomes of the national trials so that we can have a look at those results before we do this. So with that in mind, I'd like to propose that we wait for the results of the national trials so that we can implement them in a safe and controlled manner.
Okay, fine, fair enough. Well, I don't need to go further than to say, do I have a seconder on that? That's a clear proposal. We're going for option 2 from Councillor Burbidge.
Yeah, I'll
seconder.
Yeah.
Can you put your hand up over a seconder? I don't know who's going for it. Councillor Judy Fox, is it you?
Yes, I was going to. I'll put my hand up. Yeah, that's okay.
So Councillor Judy Fox, you're going to second option 2?
Yeah, option 2, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So we have a proposal of option 2 and we have a seconder. So I think we're going to have to go through. David, are we going to go through, because I haven't got it on here, are we going to go through, calling out each person in turn? Is that how you want to do this?
It may just be worth asking if there are any members who dissent to that recommendation before going to the full vote.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to put forward the first option because I think
we're on the second at the moment. But so you're going to be your dissenter in that case, yeah? You're against this, yeah?
Well, if
there's only two options. Councillor Ellis, let's just go through the process. The process is no. I wanted a proposal. I've got it. I've got a seconder. Are you?
The issue with the proposals is the second proposal. If the first one isn't carried, I may support the second one. If you see what I mean.
It's a choice of the two. And I've asked for a proposal, and I've got the second one, which is recommend that Cabinet awaits the outcome of the trials that are happening nationally before deciding whether e-scooters should be introduced in Peterborough. So that's the proposal.
With due respect, the first option is just the local trial, and if that fails, then you look at that.
That's not the choice. That's not the choice I've been given. The choice I've been given. Can you be quiet, please? The choice was I need a proposal for either option 1 or option 2. That's the options that we've been given. The proposal has been made on option 2. It wasn't if option 1, I'll go for option 2. Effectively, let's be honest, if 1 doesn't pass, 2 would be automatic, if you understand what I mean. So option 2 is on the table. It's been proposed, it's been seconded. You're not happy with that? I appreciate. Is that what you're saying?
It would be better to do option 1 than option 2.
We're not doing that. Are you happy with option 2 or not?
Well, if option 1 fell, I would perhaps be happy with option 2. That's my point.
Yeah, so Ellis, I take that as your dissent. David, can we go to the? We'll have to go to the vote because I can't get a straight answer. So,
next question.
Okay, Councillor Harper. So we are proceeding to the vote on the proposal that the Scrutiny Committee recommends that Cabinet awaits the outcome of the trials that are happening nationally before deciding whether e-scooters should be introduced. So I will run through each committee member in turn and ask if you are in favour, against, or wish to abstain on that proposal. Councillor Aitken.
I'm for that proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
I'm for the proposal.
Was that for Councillor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Burbage?
For the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Casey?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis?
Could abstain because I don't get the opportunity to vote on the first option, which if it fell, as
move on, please, David.
I could have gone second option, so I'm abstaining.
Thank you. Councillor Judy Fox?
For.
Councillor Howard?
I'm for.
Councillor Skipstead?
I'm for.
Councillor Wigan?
For.
Councillor Yazeen?
For, please, David.
And Councillor Harper?
Too many grey areas for, I'm afraid, at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So the outcome of the vote is 10 in favour, 1 abstain and 0 against. So that is carried.
Okay, so just to be clear, the recommendation is that Cabinet awaits the outcome of the trials that are happening nationally before deciding whether e-scooters should be introduced in Peterborough. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the questions. And officers, thank you very much for your report and for answering those questions. You may leave the meeting, of course, if you're no longer required any further. And thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Agenda item 7 then is the portfolio progress report for Cabinet Member for Finance, Serco annual report update and NPS annual report update, pages 37 to 60 in your packs. I'd also like to welcome Councillor Steeton now to the meeting and the following officers who will assist with his presentation of the report. As you know, Peter Carpenter is here, the Corporate Director of Resources, Alex G, the Operations Director of NPS, Felicity Paddock, Manager, Estates and Valuation, NPS, and Mark Sandu, Operations Director for Serco. Who would like to introduce the report, start the report?
Chair, I think people have heard an awful lot from me lately, so I'm very happy to go to questions on the report, but thank you for inviting me to the committee meeting. I don't know if Mr. Carpenter or Mr. Sandu want to say a few words before we start. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Mr. Carpenter, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think if I could get, as there's 3 different reports here, if I could get Mr. G just to do a brief introduction of the NPS report and Mr. Sandu to do a brief introduction for the Serco report, we could go straight to questions.
Okay, we'll go to Alex then, yes, first.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. So you have the MPS report in your pack, so I wasn't necessarily going to run through the report verbatim, as it were, but just to point out for those that are unfamiliar with MPS Peterborough, our strategy is really here to support the key strategic priorities of the City Council through delivery of estates and asset management property-related services. We do this through effectively providing property advice, asset options, managing the commercial estate, working with other councils to bring in additional income to the joint venture, whereby the profit is split equally between the MPS, the North Group, and Peterborough City Council. So external, we're a TECO compliant organisation, but any external work that we do and any end of year profit that we make as a joint, fundamentally, for the services that we cover relate to asset and estate management, both including our commercial estate and our rural farms estate as well. We've been over the last 18 months supporting the housing initiatives and the housing teams that are developing the portfolio and the potential housing revenue account, and providing some of the building management services that relate to San Martin House and also the Town Hall. Just to give you a little bit of a flavour for some of the services or some of the success stories, if you like. We've done a huge amount of work over the last 12 months, all relating to COVID, both setting up the temporary body storage unit, setting up and assisting with the COVID testing facilities for the Education Department at Royce Road, implementing the operational buildings at San Martin House, specifically, but the other operational buildings around how staff can move safely in and around those buildings, and working to ensure that where we had the full list of closures, that those buildings were safe and prepared for building repopulation. We cross a number of other sectors, both in terms of project management. So we've been involved in the delivery of the Town Hall North section, previously Town Hall South as well, and some of the school expansion work as well. So we've been working very closely with the education team over the last 4 or 5 years or so. In terms of asset management, some of the things that we've done successfully over the last year has been working on a series of option appraisals for the council's property portfolio, considering what we might do, how we might generate better revenues, better income from the councils, from the assets that it holds. We've carried out, and Felicity, who's also here this evening, has carried out the asset valuation programme on behalf of the council and has visited a number of sites. There's been a lot of historic data previously that's been used. So as part of her process, we've been going around to the sites, visiting them throughout the COVID period, making sure that we have relevant up-to-date information, and that's having a positive impact on the value of the assets that PCC hold. We have been involved throughout our history, really, but certainly over the last, specifically over the last few years, on trying to finalise those community asset transfers, which is reducing the maintenance burden on behalf of PCC and transferring those to community groups who are operating as tenants in community centres. So we're trying to minimise the risk and the impact on PCC and the finances. And we have continued to work very carefully and very closely with the commercial tenants in the retail and industrial units that PCC own, and have been continuing to let space, particularly over the last 12 months during lockdown. We've continued to take lettings, and we haven't been overtly hit by the interest of people wishing to take some of those retail and commercial units. We are also responsible for managing the Eco Innovation Centre at Peters Court, and in doing so, we've again taken on more tenants there over the last 12 months. We've increased the rent roll by just under 24,000. We've changed telephony services and internet services, saving a further 10,000 a year through some of those digital services. So we're trying to positively influence the income stream out of the property portfolio that PCC hold. And in doing so, we don't do it on our own. We very much work collaboratively with stakeholders and colleagues, and particularly with our colleagues at Aragon and with Mark at Serco. We've had dealings across the board, so we work very closely with the partners, with the strategic partners of PCC. Just in terms of numbers, if you like, because we're a company that has to generate surplus at the end of the day. Throughout our history, barring year one, which was not a full financial year, MPS Peterborough has exceeded its business plan income and business plan profit targets year on year, and we are forecast to do so this year as well. So our trading has grown year on year, and we have organic, successful and sustainable growth and financial business plans, and those are signed off by the MPS Peterborough board before they're put into practice. So there's due governance there as well, and we report to the shareholders committee as well. A lot of what we do is very much down to the investment that we put into our staff. We have I'm very pleased to say I have some exceptional people working within MPS Peterborough and who will care about working with integrity, working collaboratively with the council, and really striving to deliver the benefits and the outcomes and meeting the ambitions that the City Council have of us. That was really all I wanted to say at this point.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. Okay, Mark, your turn.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. There's really three broad areas that I'd just like to touch on today, and really highlights that are all included within the report, but these are the three that I felt I should perhaps say a few words about. The first point I've got is that I am mindful that the report really is the annual report for the year 1920. But the reality is, given the unprecedented year we've had this year, it would seem illogical if we didn't talk a little bit about what we've done this year. There's never been a year like it, and hopefully there'll never be another year like it. The KPIs for the current year, so the key performance indicators for the current year, will include in the next report we bring to committee, which will focus on the 2021 year. So I know there'll be a little bit of duplication then, but I still feel it will be worthwhile. When I look back to March 2020, it seems such a long time ago, and from that time is where everything really did change. I know Councillor Seaton and Pete Carpenter will probably recall a meeting we had in the middle of March when we all but stopped debt recovery action. Clearly, we couldn't send enforcement agents out to collect monies for us. The courts had stopped work by about this time, and we were no exception in the way we were hit by the start of the pandemic. I know Councillor Fruke was on was at the meeting earlier, and he will also recall the meeting we had about that time when we took the difficult decision to close the customer service centre along Bridge Street. It was almost a year to the day that we'd opened it, following customer services being moved from Bayard in March 2019. So despite those challenges in 1920, the Serco team did still manage to hit all of the key performance measures, which are the way the contract is managed by Pete Carpenter and his team week in, week out. That was the first thing that I wanted to refer to, and there's lots of information in the report about things that were delivered during 1920 and beyond. But the most important thing that I wanted to speak about tonight was the way that Serco team have supported council colleagues to most importantly support local businesses and local residents throughout the pandemic over really what has been the last 12 months. And I'm going to give 4 specific examples where I think this has been most successful. The first and the largest by some distance has been the work that we've undertaken in local taxation to support local businesses. Colleagues councillors won't fail to have noticed that the grants that have been awarded to local businesses, either through monetary grants or relief from business rates. And the numbers get quite staggering for those of you that are not familiar with those figures. Just to put it in perspective, we generally collect about £100 million a year in business rates. To date this year, we have paid out over £85 million, which is extraordinary, given this is a team that's used to collecting taxes rather than paying out money to local businesses. That work is still ongoing, and you will have seen in the budget, the Chancellor's budget, further grants have been announced, so they are going to go on till at least June this year and potentially beyond that. For me, I've worked in the revenues and benefits arena. I was saying to Councillor Seaton earlier, for many years at Peterborough and previous authorities as well. And I would say what we've done with the business grants this year has probably been the biggest single change to local taxation since council tax was introduced in 1993. That's how significant a challenge it has been. It was great news that with the first set of grants, we were rated as one of the fastest local authorities to support getting those grants out to very deserving businesses. The second area that we were involved in was making, and this started in September this year and will carry on until the end of the end of June. I think it's going on to June now. A £500 payment we're making to those individuals unable to work and having to self-isolate and don't get paid, for example, sickness benefit, or can't work at home. So we've made payments of £500 to those. All of it's been central government funded, and we've made those payments to about 1,200 people now that have been impacted by that. Again, to put that into perspective, that is more payments that have been made by the rest of Cambridgeshire put together. Wow. In addition to that, we made almost 10,000 payments of £150 to those people that would struggle most to pay their council tax bills. So these are people that were already in receipt of a degree of support through council tax support. So almost 10,000 families benefited from that £150. Payment wasn't paid out to them, it was credited to their account, so they had less council tax to pay for the year that is almost completed. Third area that I'd like to just pay tribute to is the customer service team. I've already alluded to the fact that we closed the customer service centre in March, the middle of March last year, and that's still closed to this day. Those staff have been incredibly flexible and have taken up other duties within the contract, most notably taking a range of COVID-related calls in the call centre. So it really has been good, and we are very grateful to those individuals, and I know they're grateful to Serco and the council, because I know many others across the city have been furloughed. We haven't had to furlough any of our team. The last team that I would pay tribute to is the ICT team, and the way that they supported council and partner colleagues to be able to work from home very quickly in March last year. The vast majority of members of our team are working from home, as are the vast majority of council colleagues. So that really was a tremendous achievement. Just before I finish, the last point that I wanted to make was almost to thank our greatest asset. That's exactly the same as the council's greatest asset, and that is our people. And we've continued to invest in their development. And the example I think I've given in the report is two of our colleagues recently graduated with a CMDA, which is the Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeships, which was great. Both of them got a first in their degrees, which was a first for us, and it just shows what apprentices can now deliver. Our team has been incredibly resilient over the last 12 months, and although most have been able to work from home, we have had a number of our staff that have continued to work from the council offices and support and deliver vital council services. Much of our management time has been spent supporting individuals through the pandemic. It's put an enormous strain, as we all know, on people's mental health. And like the council, I genuinely believe we can be proud of the way we have supported our team, and even more proud of that team. Finally, the last point I would make, and I think Sam Smith or Sue Grace referred to it earlier, and after delivering ICT for the council for the last 11 years, we transferred the service back to the council in October 2020, and that transfer went very well. So we are pleased to support the council in any way we can with ICT, even though we're not delivering it ourselves from that date. I could speak for a lot longer about the information in the report, but I'm conscious that everyone's probably had a chance to read through it. I'm more than happy to pick up any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mark. Councillor Seaton, I see your hands up. Did you want to add something?
Thank you, Chair. I thanked council staff at full council for their commitment and fortitude. It would be remiss of me not to echo what Alex and Mark have just said, and thank Serco and MPS staff for their commitment and fortitude over the last year. It has been a remarkable year, and they have done a remarkable job. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Okay, members, any questions, please, to either Councillor Seaton or any of the other officers that have addressed you this evening? Councillor Judy Fox.
Thank you, Chair. My question's to Alex. At what stage are you with the asset transfer of the community centres? I know this has been an ongoing thing for a long while, but I just wondered at what stage we are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So the programme is still ongoing. Certainly the negotiations that are in place are either at their concluding stages or with legal ready to push through. There are a number that haven't been taken up, and that's not due to the property or the willingness from the communities team to engage in some of those transfers. Is just that if you like, the business plans of the community groups were not necessarily either in a position themselves or with other mitigating factors ready to take those on. So where the programme goes in the next financial year, I'm unsure, because there isn't really a communities team that are strategically focused on this at the moment. I do know, though, that the ones that are still in train are still being worked on by Bill Tyler from MPS, and he's working very closely with the legal team to get those ones through.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, did you want to come in on that? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just add a couple of things. What we saw in the budget last week was £220 million for the purchase of community assets across the country, and so the prospectuses for those came out last week, and obviously that's another avenue we might well be able to use for the community asset transfer process. And again, Ian Phillips is the lead from Adrian Chapman's side in terms of looking at these as well.
Thank you, Peter. Parish Councillor Keith Leavesley, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question for Councillor Seaton and Alex. Bearing in mind how various people have seen the working practices adopted during COVID has been quite successful, and looking forward, I wondered if David and Alex could speculate on what the impact might be on the demand for office space in both the public and private sector post-COVID.
Good question. Thank you. I'd like to answer that.
Yeah, Councillor Seaton, if you like, I could pick that up, and in doing so, you're very welcome to jump in first. But I was actually going to bring Felicity, who's my strategic asset manager, who can answer that question for you, Councillor.
Hello, thank you for that. Thank you. And say the office market is going to change. Yes, we have anticipated that. There's certainly a bigger demand on service type offices or virtual offices, and we've seen people come forward for that quite significantly. It's a little unknown how big it's going to affect going forward. There's about a couple of % change in uptake in offices more recently. On the larger scale, it is a bit unknown because with regards to COVID, while yes, a lot of people working from home, we are still finding companies wanting to utilise offices, but obviously they've got to have social distancing in place as well. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation for them at the moment. But I think within the next 6 months, we'll see the real impact on the offices and on the office market.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Good question. Thank you, Keith, for that. Okay. Any other questions?
That, Chair, it's a very good question, Keith. I think 12 months ago, the view would have been we've actually got a shortage of office space in Peterborough. But as a council, I think we were ahead of the game. not knowing what the game was going to be. But of course, the move to San Martin House meant we brought most of our operations into one building. We occupied 3 floors of San Martin House. We then let out one of those floors as we increased agile working, brought it down to 2 floors. And just as COVID hit last March, we were looking to rent out a 2nd floor. So we'd have moved the council into just 1 floor of San Martin House. And so the fact we'd done that, the fact we'd introduced agile working really helped last March as the pandemic hit. It didn't help in the fact that wanting to let out that 2nd floor, we then weren't able to. And I think the fact we haven't been able to for 12 months is probably reflective of the current situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay, we're being asked to note the report. I think we've done that well. Is everybody happy with that? If there's anybody who doesn't agree with that, would you put your hand up? I've got Parish Councillor Keith Leasley again, or is that a legacy hand?
It's a legacy, sorry, Chair.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Seaton, I've got your hand up again as well.
May I just make one very final point, Chair, because it's something that's in the report that might otherwise go unnoticed. Many years ago, Councillor Judy Fox and Councillor John Fox gave me absolute grief over the length of time it's taken us to deal with benefits claims. And in the report, Mr. Sandhu highlights that our average time to deal with benefit claims is now 4.6 days. I remember when we were probably well over 14 days and John and Judy weren't very happy with me. So that's a real success for the council, and I'm pleased to acknowledge that with John and Judy on this Zoom call. Thank you, Chair.
Point worth noting. Thank you very much, because obviously some of us wouldn't have been about to know that, so that's good. Well done. Thank you very much. Okay, as I said, we're here to note the report. I think we've done that well, and there've been some questions. Thank you. Anybody not happy that we've noted it? No, I've got nothing on that. I think it was extremely important, and Councillor Seaton, thank you for doing my job for me. Effectively, yeah, I think we know that COVID isn't over. We're looking on the positive side. The vaccinations are being rolled out. It looks like we're going to eventually beat this thing, although I think we're going to live for it for a number of months, if not years, in some small form. And I think it's important this committee thank all those officers, all the council officers, all those people from the different people we use, such as MPS and Serco, for their fine work. At the end of the day, they've done some great work under an absolute massive strain on a year that nobody could have ever foreseen. And hopefully you'll agree with me, committee, that to basically offer our thanks for all their hard work at the end of the day. Their commitment has been fantastic, and we thank them for them. I dare say I could say that on behalf of council too, and I think I wouldn't be knocked for that. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your the officers for attending. Thank you for your report, and please do pass on your thanks to all your staff from this committee and from our council. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to, obviously you can leave when you're ready. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Okay, we're going to move on now to item 8. Item 8 is the monitoring scrutiny recommendation pages, and it's 61 to 68. And I'll hand over to David now, please, to introduce.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the usual standing item on the agenda to give members the opportunity to review responses to recommendations made at previous meetings and suggest if any further monitoring is required. All I would say on this one is that the recommendation from joint scrutiny on the 22nd of February, that was implemented as joint scrutiny suggested. So if members don't object, I'd say that could be marked as complete. Thank you.
Well, let's take that first, because I don't object to that. So is there any objection on that? And then we can move on from that. No, so I think we can take that as satisfied, David. Thank you. Okay, should we, I take it, because like I said earlier at the pre-meeting, there's quite a large document there to run through. So should I go by page? Should I run by page? Or
Sorry, Chairman, I think you might be talking about the forward plan, which is.
Oh, I do apologise. I've gone too fast, haven't I? I do apologise. Yeah. So, is any other comments on scrutiny recommendations? No. No. Okay, fine. Fair enough. Okay, then we'll now move on to item 8. This is the forward plan of executive decisions, pages 67 to 106. If you require any further information, etc. Do you need any more information on this particular, does committee need any more information on any of the decisions in the forward plan? This is the long one I was talking about that is about 40 pages long. Councillor Judy Fox.
Thank you, Chair. Page 88, number 20, I'd like a little bit more information about the approval of city parking strategy, please.
Okay, just bear with me. I'm trying to catch up with 88. Sorry, there we go.
So I didn't know what you're doing.
City parking strategy, yeah?
Yeah, that's it. If I could have a little bit more information regarding that, especially the disabled bays, please. Thank you.
And when is that likely to come? That's not going to come till June. That's reasonable, isn't it, to be in June for the report? Would you be happy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fine. So, but you want something particularly put in there about disabled parking, yeah?
Yeah, well, it's just that obviously with the there's certain amount that you have to have in the city, and they were going to put some more in. Okay. I think Steve Cox said it. You mentioned that, Steve. So it's just basically to see on how that's progressing and really what the strategy is going to be. You know, how many more? Thank you.
Steve, you've got your hand up. I'll take it you want to ask.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks, Councillor Fox. There's an action from the previous meeting. I will check whether we've come back to committee on that, which is the number of disabled spaces that there currently are.
You have. It came out today.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, just in time. But yeah, the point is about moving forward. So what we need to do is take the strategy for the car parking review through probably through a cabinet policy forum and bring it back to scrutiny after that. So it will be June, probably June at the earliest, but we can certainly programme that.
We will come back. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Fox. Any others? No?
Sorry, Chair. Just to clarify that action, so could Councillor Fox and the committee, could you just confirm that you're happy for that to go on a future agenda of CPF and then come back to scrutiny, as opposed to there being a briefing note on that item now?
Yes, if it's not till June, that's fine. You know, as long as I get to know what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's any dissent on that. Oh, cool. Hang on a second. Councillor Skipstead.
This is not on the forward plan, but I noted that you took off what was going to be on the agenda tonight. We got a briefing note instead of it being on the agenda about St. Peter's Arcade. That's going to come back at a future meeting, I understand. Is that right?
Yes, I don't know if I'm going to be chairing it, but I'm sure, yeah, that's the promise. Yes, it will be when it's ready. At the moment, there was too much going on that they couldn't give us the full report, so it's a bit difficult to scrutinise part reports. So
yeah, it's going to go to legal.
It's got to come back to us. So.
To legal team and so on. Is that
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's got to come back. It's got to come to us for scrutiny in the future date. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm committed to that. Whether I'll be the chair, it doesn't matter. But the committee should see it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good. So we're all happy with that so far. Any others at all?
Chris, can I just come back? Chris, yeah. Can I just come back on what Councillor Skipstead just said? I think I brought that to the group reps meeting that I wanted that to come back on the committee, didn't I? So that is should be on, I think, on the.
No, it will be. I committed to that, and that's why we got the briefing note sent out so you know where they are, and that it will be looked at in the future. But rather than just take it off and leave it in limbo, it will come back as soon as it's ready. Okay, but we need to scrutinise the full and proper report, not just where or part report, because we don't have all the information. So, okay. Anybody else with anything that they want to go through on those pages? No more on those. Nothing on those, David. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Well, I think I've done everything. I've done the thanks to everybody, and they've gone now anyway most days. But I'd also like to effectively give my thanks to all you guys, all the officers and councillors on this on the committee this year. I think we've had a good year. We've had some excellent items to look and scrutinise, and some great debate and questions, and some good answers too. And again, it's been one hell of a year. So it's been very difficult, and it's great that people have joined us, and we've managed to get Zoom, etc., as second nature to us now, and it would have been totally weird a year ago to think we'd be doing this all the time. So thank you very much. Thank you for all your support. Thanks for your questions. Thank you all to all the officers who joined in, and well, we'll see what happens on the other side of May the 6th, won't we? So anyway, thank you very much for everything, and take care. Have a good evening. Okay.